Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live with the Pricing Lady. This week, I have a Solocast for you. I'm Janine Liston, the Pricing Lady, in case you don't know that. And I help small business owners know what and how to charge their customers so that they can close more deals and have a profitable business for the long term. Excuse me. Today, what I wanted to talk to you about is a question that I get all the time, and I see in feeds and like Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever, quite often is this debate about whether or not you should post prices on your website. And sometimes it's a pretty hot debate, I have to say. I find it quite interesting to see the different reasons why people say one thing or the other. What's very clear is there's a huge majority that has the opinion that you should definitely always post prices. I'd like to counter that a bit because I think that it's not always the right thing for every business. So what I wanted to do today is give you a few things that you can do, a few steps that you can take to consider about whether or not this is going to be best for your business and for your customers. So let's get into the reasons why, or the way that you can think about whether or not you want to put those prices on your website. Also, I want to say hello. Thank you to those who are joining me live. We're going to get stuck right in now. So the first thing to consider when you're trying to decide if you're going to put prices on your website or not is, what is your sales process? So if customers are going to order from you without ever speaking to you, then of course you need to have prices on your website so they know what they're going to pay before they try and pay and process that payment. So that's really simple. Next, you also want to think about what your industry is and what is standard. Now, let me be clear. Just because something is an industry standard doesn't mean you have to do it. There are a lot of companies out there who are trying to be disruptive and break the norm in things. And so I want you to think first, is this an industry standard? And second, is that a standard that I want to align with or not? Is that going to be right for me and my customers ultimately? Right? So first of all, what's my sales process? Second of all, what are the industry standards? Next, you want to think about what are the standards, or no, not standards, is what I'm offering something standardized? So it's basically the same for everyone, or is it custom or bespoke? If it's custom and bespoke, then it's going to be more difficult for you to have prices on your website. I'll come back to that in a few points after this. But if you have standardized offers, then I think it can be helpful to you to put that on there. What you have to figure out is, how much information do people need to have about the value, and how easy is it for them to understand the value that aligns with the price that you're offering? If that's relatively simple, then, and you have standard offers, then having those prices on your website is probably going to save you time and effort, not having to explain it to people. However, if they need to understand the value better, and that comes best through a conversation or through a longer relationship before they make a buying decision, then having those prices online may not help you because it will weed people out that maybe shouldn't be weeded out yet. Now, the next thing I want to talk about or ask you to consider is, who do you want to weed out? Regardless of whether or not you put prices on your website or you don't, you're going to weed a group of people out. So do you want to weed people out who are offended by the prices you have on your website? And that can be that they're too high and they doubt the quality, or they're too high and they think it's too expensive. Or if your prices are too low and they start to doubt the quality, that can also weed people out, right? The other context in which you weed people out is you offend them by not having prices on your website. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who really strongly believe and do this. If they go to a website, there's no prices, they leave. There are many people who do that, but maybe that's someone that you want to weed out up front and not be having a sales conversation with later. So this is something else to consider. Who is it most important to keep in the process, and or who do you want to weed out up front? If you have any questions as I'm going through this, please go ahead and type them into the chat. That way I can address those questions live here in the call. So another thing to consider when it comes to putting prices on your website is whether or not it's better for you to give an indication of what prices might be or give fixed prices. So here's the first thing that you can consider. So there's a photographer out there in the States who actually put on his website, if you want me to take weddings at your photo, it's going to cost you at least $3,000. Are you okay with that? Yes, go to my contact page. No, go to Craigslist. This is a beautiful example of expressing what people are going to have to pay at a minimum in a kind of light and humorous way, but being very clear about what your value is and the fact that don't even consider contacting me if you're not going to pay at least $3,000. Brilliant way to give an indication rather than a fixed price and weed out people so that you don't spend time on sales call with people who aren't ultimately going to do business with you. Another way to do it is to use phrases like starting from XYZ. So this is a great way to do that. These types of giving customers indications on your page can help you because sometimes you have standard offers and other times you may have more customized things that you can do for people, but you need to help people understand more the value and you need to understand what they expect from you before you can actually fit a price tag to it. So think about if you're making an offer that is a do-it-yourself solution, that's going to have a much lower price generally than a done-for-you solution. Now, in order to have a done-for-you solution, you've got to know more about what it is that actually they want to have done and have a think about what that might entail. This is the same for products and services. You just have to think about it in the context of your business. So those are a few things that I want you to consider before you go ahead and plot prices on your pages. One more thing I want you to think about, and I see this quite often, that a lot of us have lots of different offers and different things that we can do for people, different products, different services. Now, if you're not going to be having sales conversations with customers before they make a purchase, then yeah, you have to list everything and all the prices for things. So this is really your e-commerce people. But if you're going to have sales discussions or even sometimes have sales discussions, what I suggest is that for things that are standard, if it fits for you, put prices on there for a few things, but you don't have to put prices for everything. And you don't even have to put everything you offer on there. And why do I say that? I say that because when you give customers too many options, it actually gets them into the state of decision paralysis. So then they don't know which one is better for me or why should I choose one from over the other. And when customers get confused or they get in the state of decision paralysis, what happens is they go away. And you want to make sure that you do that. Another tactic that you can use in order to help them process information differently is never put more than 3 offers on one page. That is another way to do it. So you can actually break things down and have them go to different pages based on what those offers are. So for example, you might have group programs in person and group programs online, and you'd send them to 2 different pages for that, and you might have 1, 2, or 3 offers in each area. Just an example. So thank you to those of you who are joining. We are talking today about should I put my prices on my website, which is almost an age-old question, not quite as old as chicken and the egg, which came first, but it's certainly these days a topic that is in a lot of people's minds. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them there in the chat and I'll answer them during the call here. Let me just go back and recap what we talked about. So we said the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you ask yourself, what's the sales process? If they need the information before they purchase online, or if you're going to have a conversation with them first. Next, we said, Have a think about what's the industry standard, and do you want to align with that industry standard? You see a lot of very interesting activity in how companies formulate their pricing pages today, and some of them are really trying to buck industry standards. One of the areas you see this quite a bit is in pricing transparency. There are a lot of companies out there who are trying to be more transparent with what happens with their prices. So where your money goes and why the price is what it is. And that is something that is typically not an industry standard, but it is becoming more and more common that we see that. Next, we say, how are we going to, or who do I want to weed out up front? Those who are offended by the prices being too high or too low because they see them, or those who are offended because you didn't put prices on your website. That's a really interesting thing to consider because both can be helpful depending on what you're looking to do. Next, ask yourself if it's better to give an indication rather than fixed prices. So what are the risks in each direction? And then last, I want you to think about how many offers you have on one page at one time and how you can make that more simple and easy for your customers and clients to process. Now that's what I wanted to share with you today. That will give you a little bit of food for thought, and have a time when you have a chance, go ahead and look at your own pages and think about whether or not having prices on there is the right thing for you. If you have any questions or comments on this, please go ahead and type them in the chat. Even after the call, I'll go in and once in a while and make sure that there aren't any follow-up questions from people. That's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, if you have questions or want to find out more about how to work with me, go to thepricinglady.com. And if you'd like to figure out or find out more about pricing in your business and where you can start to improve, I have a pricing scorecard, which is a fantastic tool, and it'll give you a great overview of your skills in pricing and where you can start on improving upon what you're doing. That's all for today, folks. I wish you all the best. And as always, enjoy pricing, everyone.